Welcome to the Chronicle Take, to the podcast which continues to chat over from the Chronicle, the official Palm podcast of the People's Movies. My name is Paul. I'm the host and editor of the People's Movies. Thank you for listening and sharing the current main episode of the Chronicle, episode 35. And in the Chronicle Take 2, we will be reviewing Venom: The Last Dance. But for this episode, Take Two, I won't be alone today. We have one of the People's Movies new writers on board. She's going to review it with me, and that's Fed. And how are you, Fed?
Hello, hi. I'm good, thank you. How's it going?
It's going great, thank you. And just to sort of, obviously you're new to the People's Movies. You wanted to tell the folks a little bit about yourself and who you
Sure.
write for and whatever. As in your sort of social media, we'll do that at the very end where you can let people know where they can find you.
Okay. I am a producer and journalist based in London. And yeah, I'm a huge film fan. So here I am.
Yep, just like us all. We're going to review Venom: The Last Dance. And folks, for the review for this week of the Chronicle Take 2 will be Venom: The Last Dance. And if you're a Venom fan, it might be or might not be The Last Dance. So obviously Tom Hardy returns as Eddie Brock, and obviously as everyone's favourite symbiote, Venom. So as we last left them, the last film, There Will Be Carnage, I think it was. Apologies if I got it wrong. They were on the run. Eddie and Venom are on the run because they were accused of killing someone, which was, if I remember rightly, it was Stephen Graham. And so they run away to Mexico, and obviously quickly see that Eddie's starting to get very tired of all the running. This what Venom is doing as well, and he's starting to see the televisions and the bar where he's sitting in Mexico. The news is saying they're on the hunt looking for him. Eddie, looking for Eddie for the murder of Stephen Graham's character. As we quickly see that he might not be dead, which ends up we find out that Venom, especially, he is now getting hunted. Eddie and Venom are now getting hunted by someone who might be these things that might be from Venom's homeworld. So they end up the two of them go and they run and they're going to head back to New York. But will they get back to New York? That is the case. Because this could be the end of both of them, as there's an existential threat it might kill them both. So, Fed, that was a very poor synopsis there for myself. What do you think of the film? Did you like it or didn't like it? And just like share
Oh,
your thoughts on it.
oh God. I wouldn't say I liked it. It's tough. I didn't like it, but at the same time, I really enjoyed it, which is it's very it's very difficult to explain.
Yeah,
I've been a long time fan of Tom Hardy and this whole Venom thing. And I think the previous films, especially the first one, like the first film was really, really good. But this one, it's interesting. I remember I laughed a lot watching it and I really had a great time. Those 2 hours flew by really quickly, but it was a really terrible film. It had no story.
yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm the same. I think it was an absolute car crash of a film. I remember we chatted a little bit on Instagram, I think it was,
Hmm.
and I said to you, I feel it created a number of scenes, but forgot to create the ending for them. And I think it made too many pointless scenes, and it left you scratching your head, going, "What was the point of that scene? What was the point of this scene?" And that, and there was a lot of introductions of characters, but very little backstory for them. Like for example, for a saying, folks. As I say in every podcast, including the main podcast, sometimes we might say some spoilers here. Apologies for that, but sometimes we have to say them. But we'll do our best for this episode to make sure we keep it to a minimum. The super villain in this one is. I'll just read a little bit about the super villain. I would say his name is Null. That's with a silent K, and it's a motion capture villain. And he was actually introduced where where we know he's got very little to do, and he's very little throughout the film. It's a motion capped supervillain. I'm wondering, Fed, are we spoiling it something if we actually say who actually does the voice of the character?
Oh, I haven't Googled that. But because to be honest, thinking about that character, I I actually forgot about him. I
Yeah,
know he was the main villain of the film, but as you said, there were so many pointless scenes that I actually kind of removed that character from my memory.
yeah,
it just yeah, it wasn't really it felt like it was there just to give a reason to everything, for all the events to
Yeah.
unfold. It didn't really have any purpose to
Yeah.
be there other than what happened in the film, like what the basically just the first few seconds of the film.
Yeah, he's a villain. He's a very new villain. He obviously was in when we meet him, he's imprisoned in what they were calling the Primordial Void, and he was actually introduced in the Venom comics. Here were the Venom comics, which they created thanks to the first film, and I think it was Volume 4, Issue 3, which came out in August 2018. And he was sort of born into that darkness when, as they said, when all it existed was darkness. The Celestials were introduced. The Celestials have been in the Marvel comic universe for a long, long time, but they were introduced into the cinematic version in the Internals film. No, he is seen as a Celestial Slayer because he actually kills one of the Celestials. And basically, what happens is he plunges his hand into the Celestial and pulls out this sort of symbionte, which he uses to kill that actual god. And so from this, he creates what they call the Necro Sword. However, a villain who is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because this is the Sony Marvel Cinematic Universe to confuse everyone. As in
Mhm.
the fourth films, the last villain in the last fourth film was Gore, the God Butcher, which was a character I believe that Christian Bale played. He actually steals his sword here, and it ends up trapping Null again,
Mhm.
also gets called the Lord of Abyss. What he does is he actually starts to learn that the Symbiontes can take on a host, and they can actually create a relationship, and this is how we get Eddie and Venom. That's not really a spoiler. If you go into the Marvel Wiki universe, it actually tells you about it. I think I'm going to say who actually voices it because the motion cap part actually gives it away. It was
Mhm.
Andy Serkis, and Andy Serkis was the director of the previous film. So that is how he hands over the reins to Kelly Marcel. Is more known for her writing abilities because she wrote the script for the first two films and this one, who she shares the writing duties with Tom Hardy as well. So Kelly Marcel, she also did 50 Shades. She also
Mhm.
did the film about the what's the film? Saving Mr. Banks. But she also wrote the script for the Emma Stone's Cruella. So she can write a good film.
Yeah.
She can actually write a good film there. And obviously, despite the sort of mess that this actual film is, you can actually see in this film, as you rightly mentioned, you were laughing at this, there is a fun side to the film. And you can see the fun side of the film is actually starting to break out at several occasions. And I think the first film isn't really a film that was set up to be funny. However, I think down to sort of Tom Hardy's relationship, character Eddie, gets with Venom during that film, and the second film, and this film actually becomes a bit of the star attraction. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. I think people are just attached to Eddie and Venom's relationships rather than anything else around, that film or the story. So, yeah, I feel like it got to this point just because of that and not because of the story itself. But even as you said, I didn't know it was Andy Serkis who gave the voice to
Yeah,
the evil character. And it makes absolute sense. But again, I'm not a Marvel fan in a sense that I haven't read the comics. I only watched the films. And actually, I'm kind of like I used to watch every films that used to come out from like in Marvel back in the days, and now I'm kind of struggling to keep
yeah,
up because of the high volume of all the films that are coming out, and because you have to watch every single piece of content that they put out, otherwise you won't be able to understand what's happening. So obviously for someone who hasn't read the comics and doesn't know the story behind it, seeing Andy Serkis' character there without any explanations, without any setup, without anything, it's just like him on camera saying those two words and literally like someone who has no idea what's happening, it's very difficult to follow or to understand what's going on. So that's why I'm really surprised because obviously the director she directed other really good films, but this one is not one of them.
No, no, you're right.
Surprising.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, Tom Hardy, I mean, he's very charismatic in this. He is probably the best thing about all the films. I
100%.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I mean, I'm in my late 40s and I can talk about back in the 1990s, especially when I was a teen, and I could go to Forbidden Planet and I am a big Spider-Man fan and Batman fan, and at the time I was a very big X-Men fan, and I could go in at the time it was Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and then eventually the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man came out. I got the four main ones. I could go up with £5 and get that, and then nowadays you'd be lucky to get one for £5. That's how expensive it is. So
Mhm.
I have got a bit of a relationship with. I know who Venom is, and he's a bit like the Joker to Batman. He's probably one of his greatest arch nemesis. He has got a
Mm.
comedic side to him. However, I think the films have destroyed his credibility. Yes, you're allowed to have comedy and be comedic. However, I think they've went maybe a step too far in the sort of comedic side of things because even though and you do see it in the films, even though he's trying to be funny, you can see he's got incredible powers and he can do some absolute crazy things. You know, things like as we see in this film, the horse and
Yes.
the is it the frog? That was quite funny. I think that was more in the credits, and there's a few other things in there you get to see because there's a quite a fun scene where they want to travel to New York and they hits in the back of a of an airplane on its way to New York, but something does happen
Mm-hmm.
and it sort of connects back to now, where I find it amazing how he's trapped in this planet, but he's got the power to open up these portals to send his hell dogs through, which I think they called them xenophages, who are such destructive animals. And he's talking about how he's going to destroy the symbiontes, now from his trapped planet, his unknown planet. But there's a lot of, it could be seen as a lot of MacGuffin in here, where these animals, these hell dogs, can find the Cenobites when Eddie and Venom sort of join together, and it's like the Codex. It's the Codex he's wanting to destroy, and he's saying this will bring him back to Earth where he can absolutely destroy everything. So it's like a beaming light, like a sensor, and the two of them join it, and this is how these xenophages find the Symbiontes as well. And I think you can also see back to sort of Tom Hardy. You can get
Yes.
to see even see there's a lot of flashbacks as well. Where you see him when he's younger. I mean, I think Tom Hardy is near enough, just slightly younger than me. I think he's 47, 46, 47. And you can get to see when he started it. You can see he's getting older. I mean, it's only
Yeah.
6, 7 years. You can even see in his face, he's getting a lot older, you know?
It's been a while since the first film came out.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
But speaking of comedy, do you think it's because maybe like it's obviously as you said this is Sony, it's not just the Marvel Disney Marvel.
Yeah.
Um but I notice obviously everything all films that come out of that non-Disney Marvel thing, so
Mm.
Venom or Deadpool, they're
Yes.
all very sort of funny and but it's not just funny, they can be a bit,
Bad.
well, that's I mean, we yeah, we can say that.
Yeah,
Is it,
yeah.
do you think it's the production rather than the character himself, like itself?
I think because Marvel's obviously owned by Disney,
Yeah.
and I think Marvel's putting some restrictions on. It might have something to do with because obviously Tom Holland, who's the current Spider-Man, I think they must have done a deal where they let Spider-Man him play Spider-Man in the Avengers movies. So I wonder if
Hmm.
they've struck a deal here where if you let us use Tom Holland in these movies, we'll let you do this, and that. However, we won't let you do this, and that. We'll maybe have to restrict you. And it makes me wonder if, obviously, we come back, Deadpool and Wolverine, that's the Fox side of the
Yeah.
Marvel Universe, but obviously Disney now owned 20th Century Fox, which is obviously now just 20th Century Studios. and that's now been merged into the main Marvel universe. And I'm wondering, after Craven the Hunter, which is the next movie, which is I think in December, if after that movie is done, and maybe after this Spider-Man 4 movie, is that now going to get merged into the main universe? And this is maybe where it's all sort of tied in. And that might be the reason why I think the reason why Null hasn't done a lot of stuff. We don't see a lot of him in this movie. I think they may be setting him up as a bigger villain. Because if you know the villain and people you can read up on it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's wiki pages in the comic book universe, that they I think they may be making him up to be a villain like Thanos.
Okay,
I'm wondering,
that makes sense
yeah,
because right now they didn't really use him at all as a, it was such a waste of character,
yeah,
um, because it wasn't really there. Again, I feel like this film was made just to give Eddie and Venom's a proper ending. Um, it felt like and they needed a cast to do so rather than because I think the whole thing they could have pulled the whole thing with just using Tom Hardy and that's it. Like
yeah,
it could have been like a good film with just Tom Hardy by himself doing everything because the
yeah,
rest of the cast wasn't used at all. They were introduced without any reason or point in their stories. Like Juno Temple and
yeah,
yeah, so that character. I understand what they were trying to do, but it didn't really deliver. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I totally true because I think our character and Cheetah, well, IG Force character, Rex Strickland, were very underused because
Yes.
we when we meet Temple's character, you see her as a young girl with her brother, and he's telling her what he wants to do,
Hmm.
in life, and then something happens in it, and then suddenly you see her arm, and there's something in the arm. I was thinking, is something going to happen here? There's something really, really going to happen here, and nothing really does happen until the end. With Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, I find it quite hard because a bit like Rhys Ifans, who's actually in this is a sort of hippie, a little bit of a comedy here. Both of them are also in the universe as different characters. Rhys Ifans is in it as a lizard, so he's actually in the Sony universe
Okay.
at the moment, and Ejiofor is in the main one in the Doctor Strange's because he's Baron Mordo, who was one of his Doctor Strange's biggest villains.
Yes.
So I find it hard to actually, what do you call it, to go see these characters, these actors being other characters, and they were very, very underused. Just to sort of round it up now, because we're sort of running out of time here. What is your overall thoughts of the film, and what sort of rating may you give it?
Oof. No, I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5, but simply because I loved Tom Hardy in this film, but I didn't like the film itself.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was I didn't like the film itself as well. I think it was one of the worst of the franchises and all the Marvel. I thought the writing was very childish because Tom Hardy is one of the writers with Kelly Marcel. It felt like it was written by a 10-year-old, and as I said, it was a bit of a bomb scare of a film.
Yeah.
And it's very nauseating and so I think the cinematic universe would probably want to jail them for what they've actually done. So I am giving it 1 star. I just think it was an
Ooh.
overall bad. I'm obviously a fan of, as I said, Spider-Man comic books. There you have it, folks. We both give it 2.5 and 1 star. That's your lot, folks, of the Chronicle Take 2. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. Venom: The Last Dance is now out in UK, Irish, and many cinemas around the world. Please check your local listings for that. Thank you very much, Fed, for joining us for this
Thank you for
episode.
having me.
You're welcome, and we'll get you in future episodes, be it this, the Take Two, or the main episodes. You like to tell the people where they can find you in social media and anywhere maybe you have written reviews.
Absolutely. It's at @FedBattiato on TikTok and Instagram.
That's great. Thank you very much. As in for the Chronicle and the Chronicle Take Two, you'll find us on Facebook at The People's Movie, at X Twitter at The People's Movie, Instagram at The People's Movies. We're actually on Pinterest at TPM_UK. This episode will also appear on my YouTube channel, which is at The People's Movies 1. Obviously, keep track on social media for future episodes of The Chronicle and The Chronicle Take Two. And you can also keep track by signing up for the email newsletter over at the People's Movies. You can show your support for the Chronicle and the People's Movies at Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal, where you can actually find the links at the People's Movies. Do obviously share this podcast on social media with your friends and family. And if you are listening onto one of your favourite popular podcast sites, please do give us a rating and like and do share. It does help us. We are a small podcast. And that's it. And thank you, Fed, for joining us. And thank you for joining us. Until the next time, enjoy.